You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Welcome to Scuderia F1, the podcast that's always up to speed with the latest Formula One news. Follow us on Twitter at Scuderia F1 Pod and subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Now, here are your hosts, Mark Dailey and Kevin Laramée.
Hey guys, welcome to the show this week, and it's a big weekend coming up in the world of motor racing. Not only do we have the Monaco Grand Prix, but we have Fernando Alonso and the Indy 500. The Indy 500, that I might add, is the one that I've been looking forward to, I think, ever since I heard that Fernando was going to just forgo Monaco, because this is apparently a thing you can do, and go over to Indianapolis instead. So I could tell by that chuckle there, Kevin, that you're obviously jacked up and looking forward to this weekend of racing as well.
I've been obsessed by Fernando Alonso's attempt at the Indy 500. I've watched the entire practice sessions last week from Monday to Friday, basically from 12 to 6. Whenever I could, I recorded and watched it after. It was impressive in the qualification this weekend, being in the first 9 on Saturday and finishing 5th in the Fast 9 on Sunday. Going to start 5th, second row in the Indy 500. It's impressive. He's in front of world champions with as good as car as he has. The world champion, former Indy 500 winner. He starts in front of them. First time ever on an oval. It created a buzz around the Indy 500. So much so that we actually did a show on the network, which you can find on the feed of Scuderia F1 as well. And the 101st Indy 500 preview show. It's a historical race, Mark. And because of Alonso's contribution this year to this race, it's going to be something special, and this weekend is going to be something special. Monaco too, so quite a weekend and quite a busy time for my DVR.
Well, absolutely. And this past weekend, I was only able to check in with the Indy qualifying here and there, having to pull double dad duty with my wife away on business for several days last week. But as I kind of watched it unfold, and then when I saw Fernando end up in 5th on the second row of the grid for Indy, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Just all the praise that he's getting from all the other drivers, and just the fact that he's up as high as he is. I mean, it is no small feat what he's accomplished. And
I even have more appreciation for what he's doing after talking to AJ Job, which is the former soccer podcaster. He's a former professional race car driver. He's from Indiana. His love is Indianapolis. And we've talked about on the preview show about how this race is mythical, but like you go 225 mile in turn 1, basically blind. And that takes a lot of, let's put it in a friendly, family-friendly type of setting, takes a lot of courage. So Fernando Alonso, with everything he has accomplished, doesn't need to take those type of risks. Just ask Sébastien Bourdais, where he can't walk right now. Fractured hip, fractured pelvis after a very hard accident.
Very heavy contact in that wall. Yeah, that was scary. That was scary stuff.
Very scary, and he had surgeries, and he's doing okay now. He walks with a walker. He took pictures and put it on social media. But he fractured his pelvis and his right hip because he pushed the car just a little too much on the turn in Indianapolis, and there's no give. And he tried to correct the slide, and he overcorrected and ends up at the wall at 225 miles an hour. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of risk, and he's willing to take those risks. And one of those 4 laps on Saturday, you could barely put like a hand between the back wheel and the car. He was so close, trying to get every single ounce of miles per hour that he could to be one of the best in the world, like right now already. I'm so impressed, Mark. I'm so impressed by Fernando Alonso. I think he said a few weeks ago, I believe so much in my capability as a driver. You put me in any car and I'll beat anybody with the same car. And I kind of feel that he's right now, because he's taking a car that he never drove before, on a circuit that he never drove before, on a type of circuit that he never drove before. And he has driven that car the 5th best of those 33 persons. And that is quite amazing.
It is. And as you were talking about that, just talking about the qualifying for Indianapolis and just how the margins for error, especially when you get to those final stages of qualifying, how they're just really pushing the car and really pushing the envelope right to its very maximum. Just how razor thin those margins are. And then you compare it to the race that Fernando Alonso is missing this week in Monaco. That is another circuit where the margins for error are non-existent. I mean, you just see that you get half a tire width too far one way, and you're in the wall, or you're over a curb, or whatever the case may be, or you just get onto a piece of road marking, the paint that might be a little bit slippery, and that can put you off. It's amazing how these two races, although completely different in the way that the track is constructed and just the physical layout of it, is similar in the fact that there is no room for error. You either get it right or you're done. you're out of the race.
No, and it's always impressive, Monaco as well. I kind of say I'm always impressed that they achieve those speed in those small streets and able to not always crash into each other. Like when I play video games and when I play races on Monaco, I always finish in the rail, especially at the hairpin. It's always catastrophe. And I'm always surprised that people pull it off without a catastrophe in real life, in real speed. And it's always a feat of accomplishment for me to see racing in Monaco. But for the Indy 500, Mark, over 300,000 people, and maybe closer to 400, are expected on Sunday. Still, to this day, the most attended single one-day sporting event in North America, if not the world. It's the greatest motorsport spectacle in the world, the biggest race in the world, according to Fernando Alonso earlier this week. In a one-day type of race, the setting, the implication that the track doesn't change, everything else around the track changes constantly. The cars, it's the same turns. It's always been the same turn. For 101 time on Sunday, it will have been the same turn. 800 turns you do in that race. 500 miles, 200 laps. And it is still one of the hardest things to maneuver and to master is those four corners because of everything surrounding it. Sometimes there's people around you. Sometimes you have the crowd, you have the noise, you have the sun, not the sun. It's the temperature changes. It evolves over 500 miles. It is a feat of engineering to tune your car to be able to be successful when it matters in the last 20 to 15 laps.
Well, it is quite a spectacle when you think you have all those cars lined up, the rolling start, three abreast, and it's amazing when you see that track and you see those 300,000 people packed in those stands all the way around. It is an amazing sight, and there's nothing quite like watching an exciting Indianapolis 500. And it's going to be a great day of racing. Usually what I do, I mean, I'm an admitted night owl. I do not get up and do mornings very well, and I think that's why I was a little bit disappointed when the early portion of the Formula One season finished and they moved off to Russia and now to Monaco, Spain, all these races that you get in the European portion of the calendar, because all of a sudden, rather than having them here on the west coast of North America, they come on at about, late on a Saturday evening, which is the perfect time for me because I'm up anyways and I don't mind staying up to the early hours of the morning. However, I could stay up till 2 and 3 in the morning watching the race, but for some odd reason, I can't go to bed early and get up at 5 in the morning and watch it live. So being able to schedule that around and watch Indy live and then maybe follow it up with the Monaco Grand Prix, or maybe flip it around. Maybe I'll do Monaco first before Indy comes along. It's going to be an enjoyable weekend.
And I'm just looking forward to, after Monaco, is going to be Montreal. And for the first time ever, I will be at the Montreal Grand Prix. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that I'll be there to see hopefully a great day of racing. Can you imagine those big fat tire now at Circuit Villeneuve? Oh, that's going to be amazing. But now, Mark, Indy 500, Fernando Alonso, he has a shot. We'll see. It's something to do 4 laps, but to do 200 with traffic, it's something else. So there's a chance we'll watch the race and we'll probably dissect it next week. But now it's Monaco, Mark, and it's the greatest race in the F1 calendar because of the glamour, because of the spectacle, because of the landscape, because of the attention and who's in the paddock and that red carpet and that grid formation. It's always impressive. What is your favorite part of Monaco?
I would think it would be the unpredictability. I mean, I know it's a glamorous location and it kind of embodies everything that Formula One is about. But I mean, there have been some memorable races over the years, and just the fact that the race being as long as it is, 78 laps, I believe. Anyhow, there is just so many things that can unfold, and there are so many variables and moving parts. I mean, look at poor Danny Ricciardo last year. You had to think that the way that race was shaking out, that he was going to have a legitimate shot to win that one, and he really needed that. What with Verstappen coming in, replacing Danny Kvyat after the Russian Grand Prix, and what does Verstappen do? He goes out and wins the Spanish Grand Prix in his first outing for the team. And then Danny Ricciardo, of course, unfortunately has the victory at Monaco, which is the jewel of the crown of Formula One. He's snatched away by a botched pit stop of all things. I mean, you could understand maybe some sort of mechanical problem because it's a circuit where there's a lot of attrition, or a crash, or maybe he just gets it wrong and takes himself out of the race. Whatever, there's so many things. But just the fact that he went into to change his tires, and Red Bull were just not expecting him. So it's things like that. And then the weather can always be a factor. I checked the weather report, the weather forecast. It looks like it's going to be sunny, low to mid 20s on Saturday, and sunny in Monte Carlo. So the odds that we're going to see a rain shower this year probably isn't going to happen. But I'm old enough that I can remember as a very young boy watching that race when Ayrton Senna, then driving for Lotus, burst onto the stage in what was an uncompetitive car to really, announce his arrival in Formula One. I think that race, they called it half distance or something like that, or they went just long enough to award full points. And I think Alain Prost was gesticulating somewhat quite aggressively, or not aggressively, but enthusiastically every time he came past the start-finish line to have the race stopped. So, I mean, anything can happen at Monaco, and it usually does, and that's what makes it so great.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see the new cars, right? The F1 cars of this year with wider tires, a little wider cars, trying to navigate in the city. It'll be a little different. Their markers, the driver's markers, because of the power and the different way this car feels and handles. It'll be a little different going around the circuit this time around. It'll be a little different going around the casino and the marina. It'll be a little different this time around, and I can't wait to see how the drivers do. There's always, like you mentioned, unpredictability. There's always a favorite or a contender. So this year, that would be one of the top four that gets into a rail or doesn't really finish, and opens up the possibility for more things to happen. And you never know. Performance is not necessarily the most important thing in Monaco. It is almost impossible to overtake. But we always see overtaking happen sometimes in circumstances that can be in the mid-pack battles often. So that will be interesting. Like, we have the battle for Ferrari and the Mercedes on top, but you do have as well the battle in the rest of the midfield with Red Bull, Renault, Williams. And that will be interesting. Those battles with the new cars, how it unfolds. And yeah, there is the yellow car aspect, the safety car, yellow flag. It's a really good possibility. We see one, and with the new cars and the track that is not too wide, wouldn't be surprised if we actually see some crashes too.
Well, that's bound to happen at one point or another, and usually at the start. So, although they can happen at any time of the race. I mean, how many times have we seen that over the years when they go into that first corner after that very short rundown from the start-finish line, and you have that little chicane that sort of dog legs, flicks really quickly to the left before it comes back to the right, and they head up the hill. So there is a very big potential that we may see a safety car early in the race, or or we might see it for another eventuality, another incident like we've seen with the poor old Max Verstappen. He's entered 2 Monaco Grand Prix since he's joined Formula One, and he hasn't finished either of them. He had that big crash at the first corner in 2015, and then last year he had a crash a little bit further up the track. But again, it just goes to show you that the margins there are basically non-existent, and you can be a very good and very talented driver like Max Verstappen, but you take all that power that you have in the car and you take the enthusiasm, and maybe that is just a bit of a dangerous combination for Max, just pushing the envelope a little bit too much, and it's a very unforgiving place to race. As I don't know if you noticed this, but I tweeted out something the other night that it's been, well, I guess I'm not sure how many years it was, but it was early to mid 1950s when Alberto Ascari crashed his car into the harbor at Monaco. So, I mean, obviously safety is a lot better than it was back in those days. But, I mean, we've literally seen everything.
Right?
Pardon me?
They had to fish the car out, basically.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, apart from breaking his nose, he was completely unscathed. I mean, in those days, of course, they just had like the cloth helmets and no seatbelts. So, I mean, all he had to do was get himself out of the car. But I mean, that is just, I mean, that is an era I don't think that anybody that's listening to this show can really comprehend what really went on in those days. But I mean, my point is, I mean, it is an unpredictable race, and there's almost anything can happen, and we've seen it over the years.
No, we have, and we've talked about Red Bull, and according to Renault, it might have been Red Bull that have something wrong with how they actually handle the engine. It might not be the actual engine itself, and that could be interesting. The development that they brought into Spain, they don't necessarily work the way the one the Mercs brought and the one Ferrari brought, and they were still catching up. They're still catching up. They're still behind. And for Red Bull, now in a different type of setting where those upgrades won't be as necessary, you can tweak out other things that you might have got wrong in the design of the car. And that's what Red Bull has to work on now, is the design of the car with the engine they have, with the new upgrades and with everything, the power and the drivetrain, everything surrounding what's not necessarily working to the highest of its potential with this car. That's what they have to change. And in Monaco, it's not going to change anything, really, because you don't really use the potential of your car. You're just trying to slow down enough and make your brakes survive. And that will be a good question with those big fat tires and the big more pressure. And we've seen brake temperature problems, especially for Mercedes. Can Mercedes survive Monaco with the new brakes? There's some question of reliability where I still feel, Mark, the Mercs are not as reliable as we think. I think the issue of Bottas last race with the turbo, now we know it's a turbo and it never happened before. That's what Toto Wolff said. And now I think that could be worrisome. But I think it highlights the fact that they might not be as reliable as we imagine. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the Mercs doesn't finish Monaco, and maybe because of a brake problem.
Well, we saw that last year. Remember, Nico Rosberg was not very competitive at Monaco at all. And what did he end up? I think it was about 6th or something like that. And he was actually told to move out of the way to let Lewis Hamilton pass. I mean, ultimately, that turned out to be a good call by Mercedes, because Lewis went on to win that race. Sorry, Nico Rosberg, as I look at the results from 2016, actually ended up in 7th position, 93 seconds behind his teammate Lewis Hamilton. He was the last car that was on the lead lap, so he came very close to being lapped by his own teammate. So we've seen that they have had issues there before. And so, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, that the Mercedes that we're seeing this year isn't quite as bulletproof and as dominant as it has been over the past 2 to 3 years. And I think especially when you see some of the issues like you have with Valtteri Bottas and the turbo problem that he had in Spain, those just aren't really issues that we're used to seeing from Mercedes. We don't really see too many engine problems with them. We've seen over time that they have had some engine failures, most notably Lewis Hamilton at Malaysia last year, but usually they tend to be little mechanical problems here or there that are problematic for the drivers, but didn't really affect their ability to win the race. So you think back to Russia last year when Rosberg won that one, and then his teammate Lewis Hamilton was a little bit further back in second place. He had a water pump issue, I think it was that day. So to see them having those sorts of problems is something that's completely new. And well, like I say, if you don't get it right in Monaco, then it's just going to amplify any problems or any weak areas that you have.
Yeah, and speaking of the Mercs, Toto Wolff admits that he's rediscovering his love for Formula One this season. You know, when you're always winning, Mark, it can get boring. You know, it's quite boring to be the king when you have the biggest army and there's nobody even challenging you. You're just there. You kind of need a challenge. They got that challenge this year, and Toto Wolff rediscovers what it is. And if you look at him when Bottas won and he shakes his head, his fist, and he's happy, and he is rediscovering his love of Formula One because Ferrari's challenging Mercedes this year, and that is interesting for everyone, Toto Wolff included.
Absolutely. And I was thinking earlier when you were talking about the midfield battle in Formula One being the Red Bulls and the Williams and the Renaults and all these sorts of different teams. But I was kind of thinking, isn't the midfield Force Indias?
Yeah. Geez, they're so good this year. We forgot about them. Force India, third team in the basically almost their best third team right now.
Yes, absolutely. And we can't forget about them at all. But I was going to take it a step further to say that isn't the midfield battle basically anybody that isn't named Sebastian Vettel or Lewis Hamilton? Because, I mean, they really, pretty much. I mean, they seem to be a little bit in a league of their own at the moment. And it's been quite fascinating and exciting to watch. I mean, we'd said through the first several races of the season that it was just unfortunate the way that the race played out for one reason or another, that we never quite saw the two of them get that opportunity to race wheel to wheel. We didn't see it in Russia because Hamilton just wasn't competitive, and it was Bottas the one that was leading the way. And then you go back to China, and there was the issue that Sebastian Vettel had when there was a safety car and he got caught out, so he never quite got close enough to Hamilton. But we finally saw that in Spain the other week, and I thought it was pretty exciting stuff to see the two of them trading paint and banging wheels as they went through that series of corners right at the end of this the long straightaway there. So
and that brings me back, Mark, to the Indy 500. That's why I can't wait, because that's what you have for 200 laps. It's cars battling each other. Just seeing Alonso talking about how it's fun to race cars, the driver to be in the pack and to feel it and to feel the way he was talking about it was like a kid who just comes out of the candy store and just was able to spend $200 at penny candies and has a big bag full, and he's going to have candies for the rest of his life, and he's going to take this feeling to the grave. And that's how he was talking about how, wow, I'm rediscovering something that I haven't felt in forever. Like, you feel the engine, it's right there. You feel the power, you feel the vibration, you feel everything. It's difficult, it's tough. You have to press with your legs, and you have to race, and you have to race other drivers, and you have to overtake, and you have to the gamemanship, and you have to do the car around. It's going to be fun, and that's why I'm excited, because I can't wait to see Alonso, who he says he's the best driver. He says he's the best driver in F1 right now. And I have to say, qualified 7th with a god-awful McLaren in Spain, he might be right. And the way he's driving in the 500, we'll know. But that's why I'm excited, because we're going to see racing. So yeah, racing is fun to see.
Absolutely. And, I don't know when this show actually kind of morphed into the Everything Fernando Alonso and McLaren podcast, but it really seems that the majority of the news over the last month or so has definitely been being top heavy when it comes to either Fernando or some of the issues that McLaren have had. And the last couple of days has been no different. Obviously, we've been talking all about Fernando and his exploits at the Indy 500. But just coming back to Fernando in Formula One, there's a rumor out right now that Fernando is possibly one of the front runners to maybe go to Renault for next year. Now, Alain Prost, that's a bit of an insider there, says that probably isn't going to happen because Fernando wants to win races. He wants to challenge and win championships. He's still got that desire to do it all in Formula One. But Renault, they're just not quite there. And even Alain Prost says that it's going to be realistically another 3 years before they're ready to really challenge and be a legitimate contender. He's talking 2020, which fits in about right when they said last year when they came back in that they were looking at a mid-range project that was going to be 4 to 5 years before they would be legitimate contenders to win races. And you just do the math, and that puts them right about 2020. And I don't know if you're Fernando Alonso, I mean, the thing is, though, I mean, if you look at McLaren and Renault right now, I don't think that would be very much of a lateral move for Fernando. He definitely would be better at Renault, but I don't think he would be far enough up where he really wants to be.
You can go at Renault and be with Alain Prost, Mark, without actually being at F1 Renault. Where is Alain Prost now? He's the technical director, I think, or whatever that name is, of Renault EDAMS in the Formula E. He's the team director there. So that's why he's close in the insider with Renault, because of that position. They're dominating right now, Formula E. Maybe Renault does have a fast car for Alonso, but just not in F1. Who knows? We're not there yet. That's a totally different competition. But you do have drivers like Esteban Gutierrez, Nick Heidfeld, and others in Formula E. I've started, yes, to pay more attention to Formula E because, well, in 2 months from now, it'll be in the streets of my city, Formula E Grand Prix, the end of July. But, yeah, I do feel Alonso is probably one of the best drivers. And I think him performing well in the Indy 500 might actually open eyes in F1 circuit too, right? I think his qualifying in Spain probably was like a FU to people ever saying, you know what? I am the best here. You think you have a good car? I can maybe give you half a second. Look what I just did with this car. So maybe if you're a Red Bull and this guy can give you half a second, you think you can do something about it? If you're a Ferrari and you decide that Vettel needs somebody else, maybe the bridge are burned there. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, Fernando Alonso might be half a second, whatever the car may be. So I don't know what's going to be the future. I don't think it's going to be McLaren. Maybe it's going to be McLaren, Honda, Andretti full-time in IndyCar. That would not surprise me. That would surprise me less than seeing Alonso back full-time with Formula One McLaren if they don't have a better car.
Yeah, well, it was interesting, the article that I read on Sky Sports F1 today that said that, or at least put out there, this idea that Renault just cannot provide Alonso with the winning machinery that he wants. And they sort of go on to outline a bit of the background, which we've discussed many times, and that, of course, he's one of the two big names that is out of contract at the end of this year, the other one being Sebastian Vettel. But considering the way that Vettel's been revitalized this year and Ferrari's been revitalized this year, that why would Vettel not want to go back for 2018 and beyond, as long as the two sides can get together and hammer out a contract? But I mean, obviously you would have to think out of those two, Fernando Alonso is obviously got to be the guy that is going to move if either of them is going to. And it says in the article that Alonso will leave unless he can be persuaded that McLaren can be winners in 2018. And I was thinking, how the hell do you sell that? If you're Zach Brown, how do you sell that to Fernando Alonso? Because, I mean, we saw, I mean, he had a great qualifying in Spain. He got to what, 7th to start the Grand Prix, his home Grand Prix. Fantastic, right?
After a corner or two, it was back to 12. But
yes, yeah. Yeah, but how do you persuade him that, okay, well, this is just a taste of things to come? I mean, as good as it was to see Fernando get into Q3 and get as high as he did, I mean, the race 12th, he still didn't get any points out of it. And that's still, at the end of the day, that is a long way from challenging for a pole position or challenging for a race victory. So I don't know how they do it, but if they can pull it off and persuade him to come back, I mean, I will give them all the props and kudos and congratulations and admiration that they deserve, because that seems like a completely unenviable and basically near impossible task to convince him to come back, as far as I can see it from my point of view anyways.
No, I have to agree with you. So we'll see where Alonso ends up next year. And I think it's going to be a big topic, Alonso. And yeah, it has consumed a big part of my life over the last 2 weeks, the Alonso story. And I think it's fascinating. And I think it's for the right reason. We're talking about a driver who wants to drive. And I think it's something we don't correlate enough with Formula One. That it's about racing. It is like NASCAR. It is like IndyCar. It is like kart. It is like touring, DTM, Le Mans. It's all related. No, it's not that special. It's different. And I think sometimes F1 has to stop looking at itself as higher than everybody else. And I think Liberty Media is going to do a lot to change the way we perceive F1 as inaccessible, unattainable in the fan perspective, or as a driver, as a mechanic, as anybody. And in the world of social media and accessibility and brand across the board, I think that's going to change a lot. And I think we'll see Chase Carey change and try to bring more the NASCAR feel, maybe somewhere in between of relating to actual automobiles, to F1 car, to Mr. and Mrs. Anyone. I think it's important to see this in the future. And I think Fernando Alonso's decision to do the Indy 500 has already opened eyes that, you know what, F1 is like IndyCar, and IndyCar is like F1, and NASCAR too, and all those things. It's all about cars that goes fast, and who's the fastest, who drives the fastest. That's what we want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep wondering too that the whole Fernando to Indianapolis, I mean, it doesn't matter what topic we seem to talk about. It seems to continuously weave its way back and come back to Fernando at Indy. But I keep thinking to myself, as much as it is McLaren maybe trying to, I don't know, make things up, if that's a thing, to Fernando, they give him this chance to win a big event and give him that shot to win the Triple Crown, and maybe give him that just that opportunity, like I say, and then also maybe kind of sweeten the pot a little bit if he does well at Indianapolis. Maybe that helps get him under contract for 2018 and beyond. But on the other side, it's also, like you say, it's a very good opportunity for him to prove that he's still got the goods and he can deliver, and he's still an exceptionally fast and talented driver. And also the other thing that's really funny to see is the pictures of Formula One Fernando and IndyCar Fernando, because they are like night and day.
One is smiling and having a blast, and the other one is F1 Fernando.
Yeah, the other one is not smiling and he's having a blast usually because his engine blows up or something like that.
Well, yeah, the blast is not himself, it's his car, so that's different.
Yeah, so it'll be very, very enjoyable to watch. But sort of going back to what we were talking about earlier about Monaco being such a challenging Grand Prix and being such a unique racetrack, that's a bit of a tough one, I think, for a guy like Jenson Button, who's coming in to fill in Fernando for this one race and his only appearance for 2017. And I love the way that Button frames this, because of course he has a contract still with McLaren for this year and next, and he keeps saying that, you know, his racing days are behind him. I kind of like the way that he kind of put it, was that he's just kind of like living the dream now as just a regular guy that gets to go and race at Monaco. I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but I was just thinking, well, I'm a regular guy that loves Formula One, but nobody's called me to fit in for Fernando. Well, probably because one thing is I probably couldn't fit into the cockpit of the MCL 32, but that's another story. But yeah, it'll be be interesting to see how Button does and McLaren.
Might not be well, though. I have a feeling that it might not be that spectacular, and it might actually be spectacular for the wrong reasons. Where I don't know how many laps Jensen could finish. He had a terrible crash in the simulator, apparently, with Monaco configuration. It's a brand new car. He hasn't been testing this car. He hasn't really done a lot of laps in this car. And you have a brand new car that you're not accustomed to at the one place where you can't really miss any turn. So I have a feeling that Button might be back in his apartment before the end of this race.
Well, that could very well happen, and it's a tough thing. I mean, we've seen how Lance Stroll has struggled. I mean, obviously, there's a huge gap in the amount of experience that Lance has compared to Jenson Button, and Lewis Hamilton even said before the start of the season that there was never a more difficult time for someone to join Formula One than Lance Stroll, when everything was basically brand new for this year. But you take Jenson Button on the other side. Here's a guy that's got years of experience racing at the highest level and has got a world championship to his name. Yeah, I don't think he's going to find it easy as well. But you would have to think, though, being the race that it is, that you don't necessarily need the speed that and the power that you need somewhere else. I mean, you just need a good, reliable car that handles well, that can get you around the circuit there. And Monaco is a place where Honda's power deficit is not going to handicap McLaren as it has at basically any other race that they've raced at this year and will for the rest of the season. So if there ever was a legitimate shot for them to collect some points this weekend, it would be the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, it would be, but Button doesn't necessarily feel the pressure of that. So maybe that's a positive too, because he doesn't have that negative pressure that Van Dorn does. Funny story. On social media, the BBC does a gossip column of Formula One every day, right? It's just like 5-6 tidbits of information. And there's always like the social media of drivers of the day before. Lewis Hamilton is doing boxing. Magnussen is running. And Bottas is doing some physical. Van Dorn is sitting next to the ocean on a concrete wall contemplating life. That tells you all you need to know about the mindset of drivers heading into Monaco.
Yeah, it's very, very different. And, well, I think it's kind of in keeping with some of Stoffel's social media moments, because I remember at Bahrain when he didn't even make it to the grid because he had, a power failure in his MGU-K or H? I can't remember. One of his components failed.
Not even start, yeah.
Yeah, and the picture he tweeted was him on the on the treadmill getting some exercise and getting a bit of a run in, and something to the caption of, "Hey, what are you guys doing this Sunday afternoon?" with a crying emoji or something like that. So definitely it appears that Stoffel may not be in the best mind state or frame of mind at certain points anyways. But we mentioned him quickly, and it's become a bit of a regular feature on this program over the last month or two that it's time for taking a stroll with Lance. And it appears that the question marks and the naysayers are starting to become a little bit more vocal, aren't they, Kevin?
Yes, and I think Lance is used to it, though, because of his father, Lawrence, and his billions of dollars, and the way he was directly implicated, not only in his seat in Williams, and in all his seats before. He actually bought the F3 team and bought like Italian engineers and Ferrari engineers. Yeah, so you're always under a magnifying glass when you pay to play. Especially, he won before, and that's especially on an article on The Guardian on the blog by Giles Richards. There's always more pressure, and there's always going to be haters when you pay to get there. Because, he might still be good enough to be there, and his pedigree says so. But the perception of people will be, well, you're there because your father's rich. That's why you're there, Lance. So he has to do results to get results to kibosh that, right? That's the perception. Oh, until he has results. Yeah, he has not had luck this season. And in a place like Monaco, you're either full of luck or you're out of luck. And we'll see which one it is for Lance this time around. a track that he's not familiar with the Formula One at least. He has never won a race with it. He has never driven a race with a Formula One on this track. So that will be a lot of new things to learn in a quick weekend once again. But if there's a place for him to get a result because of maybe a big accident, 3-4 cars not finished, and he's in the points, maybe that's what it takes. But I hope Lance finally has some ammunition against his haters, because they are starting to be loud. Not that the pressure is not warranted, and not that he gets affected by it. He's used to it by now. His entire life has probably had that pressure because of who he is and who his father is. Mm-hmm. But I think it's time for him to get some points.
Yeah, I think so. But Monaco's a tough place to get some points, so I definitely don't envy him. But these questions, of course, are always going to come up. And like you say, if you pay to play, then that microscope is going to be focused on you right from the very first moment. And I think a lot of people are looking at Lance in the same way that they were looking at Max Verstappen. And I think the difference being between the two of them is that maybe while Max wasn't enjoying the success that he was or is with Red Bull, I think that he was a little bit more consistent, a little bit more competitive, just a little bit more reliable in especially his first season with Toro Rosso. Maybe that's not 100% fair, but that's just the way that Formula One, and that's the way that Formula, or just motor racing is in general, I should say. So of course he's going to be scrutinized a lot closer than a lot of guys, but I mean there's a big difference, and I think that's Max Verstappen and what he's done in Formula One and what he's done to revolutionize the sport as a kid. Is he even 19 yet? I mean, he's still 18, right? I mean, it is nothing short of absolutely amazing. So, I mean, he's really changed the standard by which all other drivers are judged by, and especially young guys like Lance Stroll. And I mean, there is this youth revolution in the sport, and if he's not going to get the job done, then there's going to be a lot of people asking a lot of questions. That's just a fact of life.
Yep, and we'll know this weekend if he's closer to the points. At least now he finishes races, Mark. So at least it's a step in the right direction for Lance. We're not talking about Lance being in the gravel pit. Now we're talking about Lance trying to finish in the points. So at least it's progress.
Absolutely. And talking about Max Verstappen, they had a demo day at Zandvoort in Holland. The Dutch Grand Prix was hosted there for about 30-something odd years, but they haven't had a Grand Prix there in also about 30 years. I think the last time they had a Dutch Grand Prix was in the mid-1980s, I think, from what I was reading. Anyways, Max was racing around there in one of the Red Bull RB8s, and he broke the lap record unofficially, and setting a time of 1 minute 19.511 seconds, which was 0.3 off the previous record that was set by Luca Badoer in a Ferrari F2001 over 15 years ago. And it was pretty good. And being Dutch myself and having lived there for a large portion of my life, I can tell you that the hype around Max in Holland is for real, and it's massive, and it's a really big thing there. And some of the speculation is that by doing this demo day at Zandvoort is perhaps maybe the first indication, maybe just testing the water, if you will, to see if it would be viable to actually host a Grand Prix at Zandvoort again at some time in the future. The support is there, and the track is upgraded. Whether or not it's ready for it, good question.
And it would be part of the new mentality of Liberty Media, too, to use their assets they have, like the drivers and where they're popular, and create an event there. With the popularity of Verstappen right now, you could probably fill the stands with a few hundred thousand fans. No problem, because of his popularity. There's already like 20, 30,000 Dutch fans at European Grand Prix to see Max Verstappen. Just if you were in Spain, it was orange all across the stands. It wasn't because it was the Spanish Grand Prix, the Spanish flag. It was for Verstappen, and that was impressive to see. And I have to agree with you. Yeah, there's a possibility, and we know that Liberty Media will embrace those places if the support's going to be there, and that's what they want to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if down the road, Verstappen and his popularity and the sheer demand of it will bring a Grand Prix to Holland.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you say, I mean, tens of thousands of Dutch fans are making the trip around Europe. I mean, we saw that last year at Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix in the summer. I mean, obviously, that's about as close as you get to Holland for a Grand Prix at the moment. And I can't remember what it was. I think it was about 50 to 60,000 people made the trip. It's only a couple of hours. It's not that far away at all. And they absolutely jammed the stands there. And you see it all the time now. It doesn't matter what race it is. I mean, obviously, in Europe, you're going to get more Dutch fans there, but it doesn't matter where the Formula One circus seems to travel nowadays. You're always going to see some people wearing orange shirts in the crowd, and Dutch fans, they love to travel, and heavens knows they need something to cheer about, what with the World Cup coming up next year and no Dutch team there to represent them. So the timing for Max is absolutely fantastic from that point of view, because
I'll be wearing orange, Mark, on Sunday, but that's because of Fernando Alonso. Yeah, back to Fernando. I'm going to be wearing orange because of Orlando, and I just wanted to make a joke.
Well, I want to see a picture so I can see exactly what kind of orange it is. If it's a Dutch football kit, then there'll be additional questions to answer. But it's all good. It is great to see though, and it's great to see people getting behind the drivers and seeing more enthusiasm, because it really is interesting to see some of the comments that you hear Chase Carey make every once in a while nowadays, that just about Ecclestone and just how he was holding the sport back, and just how they weren't developing it and really maximizing the properties that they had, and really going after different markets, different generations of people. And you don't really get one long rant, but you get these little snippets here and there all the time, and it really really paints an interesting picture when you put them all together.
Well, you know what it reminds me of, and that's me, an outsider who's never met all those people and never been inside a paddock of Formula One until a few weekends from now. So there's only so much I grasp about the situation. That being said, here's what I think that it was under Bernie Ecclestone. You know, when your ship is so big and it's becoming bigger that you don't necessarily control everything, you don't try to make the ship even bigger to make sure you don't control everything, because then somebody else is going to take over. You're trying to just maintain your ground, maintain the ship, maintain your influence. Now, with this, don't try to make it better too much. Don't try to make it bigger too much. Give me more money, yes, but let's keep it like this. Let's keep my sphere of influence, the job. Let me control everything. What did Liberty Media do? One of the first things they do is put 3 people in charge instead of 1. Mm-hmm. And trying to expand things. They're trying to make it bigger. The more people in charge, the more theoretically they can be in charge of, which means F1 is bigger. So I think it's indicative of a lot. That one of the first things that Chase Carey has done is surround himself. And the other thing they're doing is trying to correct errors of the past, trying to negate and kibosh that feeling that F1 is so much out of the league of everyone that you need to be rich to just be a fan, right? Or to get that sentiment away and to make access to the circuit more accessible, to make accessible, to make tickets more accessible, to make it not necessarily more affordable, but to include more, to see Stevie Wonder going to sing now in Austin, to have that quote-unquote 11th team. Have you seen this, Mark? The double-seater, which basically bakes over the manure.
Okay, right.
Paddock, every single, because it's built for 22 cars, right?
Yep.
There's a car that has 2-seater. It's called the F1 Experience. And you can pay, and there's an F1 driver, and there's a team, and they make you go around the track. So there's a lot of new things being tried. And it's kind of fun to see people in charge that want to make F1 and want to make race car and race drivers and racing, and not just the F1 brand, but want to maybe include F1 brand. And that's just me speculating here. But to bring the F1 branding back to motor racing and include it in the pyramid, right? And not just make it a totally different thing that is not like... it's hard to explain how I see it in my mind, but I feel like you kind of need that testing ground of Alonso going to Indy or other drivers, maybe a NASCAR driver trying to become an F1 driver. And imagine the publicity you would get in the southern part of the United States if one of the best drivers like Kyle Busch, who actually did well in the Indy 500, if he would try to go to F1 for a season, right? And maybe those type of things in the future. But I think for the brand of racing and F1, and I think it's for the best. And I think we've seen a lot of things in that direction right now with Chase Carey, with Ross Brawn, with the third guy that I keep forgetting his name that's in charge of the marketing.
Sean Bratches.
Sean Bratches,
Yep.
Thank you. I see a lot of good things being done, and it's not perfect, and there's always they're discovering the new world too, but I do feel the direction they're trying to take to basically to sum it up, to give F1 back to the people, and it's kind of interesting.
Well, it's true. And I mean, Bernie Ecclestone gets a lot of credit for building Formula One into what it was. I mean, that's no small accomplishment to take it from, I wouldn't say an obscure series, but I mean, it wasn't the thing that it was or is today when it first started out. So, I mean, Bernie built it into what it is today and what Liberty Media has inherited and what they're building on. The thing is, though, when Bernie was in charge, it all came back and eventually came back to Bernie. I mean, he ruled it basically as his own kingdom, and that's how it worked. I mean, it worked for what he wanted to do, but for the sport to grow and to really realize its full potential and build on what they've done over the past 40 years, you needed somebody like Liberty Media. And I think that it's refreshing to see some of the relaxation that you've seen around the social media. You get to see a bit more of the human side of the drivers instead of, what's just carefully put out there by, the PR and the marketing and stuff like that. I mean, that's all got a place, and I accept that as well, but it's good to see some of these different things, and it's good to see them building more on like the festival part of it and looking into what they can do on the sporting side as well. So of course it's going to be a long time. It's going to be an ongoing process. It's not going to be fixed overnight, but they definitely seem like the people that are in the right place at the right time, and they're at least willing to explore and what they need to do, and they're willing to implement change. So that can only be a good thing, we hope, for Formula One.
Yep, I think so too. And to bring it back to Alonso, I think for motor racing as a whole, the last 2 weeks have shown us a lot, and I think this weekend will show us a lot too, that when you intertwine everything, I think the F1 rating, and I will keep an eye on them, I think the F1 rating in the United States will be up because people will be like, oh yeah, Alonso, he's in the Indy 500. Let's see where he used to race you like 2 weeks ago. And I think the Indy 500 ratings will be up because of F1 people's like, Alonso, let's see him. And I think it's going to be best for both worlds this weekend. And I can't wait, Mark. Literally, this weekend of motorsport racing is, outside of the Daytona 500 in NASCAR, the other biggest races in the world is this weekend.
And that is an exciting and wonderful opportunity. And it's going to be a great weekend of racing. Although I think that Fernando may want to take a little bit of advice or maybe learn a lesson, maybe not to go to the local Taco Bell after the race on the weekend. I don't know if anybody heard about this, but Scott Dixon and Dario Franchitti were actually held up and robbed at gunpoint when they went to a drive-through.
After being on pole, Scott Dixon is going to start first in the Indy 500 mark, and he was robbed at gunpoint in his car by a 14 and a 15-year-old in the drive-through of a bad neighborhood Taco Bell close to the circuit. And yes, the culprits have been arrested, and they're going to be dealt with, but it's not necessarily a good experience for the pole sitter just a few hours after actually winning that said pole.
No talk about going from one extreme to the other, but that was a let's just say that was a news story I did not expect to see show up in my feed after the qualifying.
That won't happen in Monaco. You can bet on that. Nobody's going to get robbed in a drive-through close to the Monaco Grand Prix circuit.
Well,
that's almost scary. But I don't even think there's a Taco Bell in Monaco.
That's what I was going to say. Well, you can be guaranteed that's not going to happen in Monaco because there isn't a Taco Bell with a drive-through there in the first place. So
there's no drive-thrus in Europe. Pretty much anyways.
That's correct. All right, Kevin, what else do we have going on tonight, and what do we have going on the network this week?
For tonight, that's pretty much it. Like the last thing is Liberty Media, Stevie Wonder, and they're taking a look at a lot of things to bring to the Grand Prix. And Pirelli, I think it's important. They're now with the experience of the new cars, they're thinking of going even a softer tire next year with the input of the drivers and the engineers. And softer tire would mean even more grip, would mean even more racing, which would be awesome. So that's pretty much the entire news that I had on the docket, and I'm still so pumped. 500. Listen to the Indy 500 preview show we did on the network. I'm quite proud of the show. Quite fun to talk with AJ, former professional race car driver. It was amazing to talk about the Indy 500, the circuit, the history, the teams that are contenders now, the drivers that are contenders, the history, and some audio of great moments of years past. So I had a blast doing it. And if you like Formula One, you like race car, you like racing, I suggest we like the Indy 500 preview show.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And of course, before I let you go, Kevin, where can everybody find you online?
You can follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramée and at SportsPodNet.
Very cool. And of course, you can follow this show on Twitter at Scuderia F1 Pod. And that's it. That's a wrap. We'll be back in a couple of days, or more than a couple of days, actually. But we'll be back shortly to wrap up the Monaco Grand Prix and the Indy 500. And then I don't know what we're going to talk about next week when there's no more Fernando Alonso to Indianapolis news. But we'll do. We're survivors. We'll make something work. Anyways, thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Scuderia F1 podcast. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, then head over to ScuderiaF1pod.com. Want to get in touch with us? Then email us at ScuderiaF1pod@gmail.com.
You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.